Hi everybody, welcome back. Today we're going to be working with more slope. Instead of looking at a table or a graph to figure out our slope, however, we are going to be looking at given 2 points. So if we look at this little box, it says our slope formula, which we discussed yesterday, is rise over run. Another way to look at that is y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. I'm going to go ahead and circle where I see that. What I'm going to do is give you guys a quick and easy way to remember our formulas. So if you kind of think about it for a minute, and we're going to draw some mocktail glasses. So here are my two mocktail glasses. Now, you can't have glasses floating around out there in midair, so we're going to put a line underneath it. So there's my line. That's my table, but a table can't be a table unless it has legs. So I'm going to draw my X's to make the legs of my table. Now, we're saying this is a mocktail for a reason, because how old do you have to be to drink? You have to be 21. So 21, so 2 and a 1. And then, of course, we always subtract our values. So that's a quick and easy way to remember your equation. It's y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. So that's awesome that we have a formula, but where do those points actually come from? Well, when you're given 2 points, you're going to get used to the idea of labeling them. Your first point always goes x and then y. And we put a little 1 by them, so we know that that's our first point. Your second point, again, is x and y, but we put a little 2 by them because that's our second point. So another way of looking at slope is simply just talking about the rate of change. Rate of change. So let's see how this works when we practice some problems. Let's look at example number 1. We have 2 points listed. So the first thing that I'm going to do is label my x1, y1, my x2, y2. So remember, it's always a good practice and habit to get into writing your equations or your formulas that you're going to be using. So it's y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. The things that always repeat is you're always going to have a division symbol and you're always going to be subtracting. So what I like to say is rewrite that part of your equation. So I'm rewriting. There's my division, my fraction, and my subtraction signs. Now I'm just labeling. So which value is in my x1 position? Right here. So that's my -1. So I'm going to put that number in x1. What number is in the x2 position? Okay, that's a 3. So I'm going to put that number in my x2 position. Working a little bit backwards, in my y2 position, I have -2. And in my y1 position, I have a 0. So to start with, all I did was substitute my values in. And this is where now you need to do some little bit of math on your own. From here, -2 minus 0 is still just -2. On the bottom, do you all see how we have minus a negative? Remember, if you have minus a negative, that turns into a positive. Let me show you a little trick to remember that. So say for pretend you have a minus, and then you also have a negative. You could take your minus and your negative and turn that into a plus sign. So that is where we get our 2 negatives give us a positive. So looking back to our equation here, what is 3 plus 1? You guessed it, it is 4. Whenever you do slope, you always want to reduce that fraction. So what can you divide both -2 and 4 by? Good job, you can divide them both by 2. -2 divided by 2 is equal to a -1, and 4 divided by 2 is equal to 2. And this is our final answer. Let's go ahead and look at another one. I'm going to rewrite my equation, my formula, again to make sure I don't miss any key parts of it. Remember, it's y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. Which part of that equation do we always rewrite? Our fraction symbol and our subtraction symbols. So here's my fraction, here's my subtraction. Now that I went ahead and rewrote that stuff, I'm going to label my points. x1, y1, x2, y2. So looking at my formula, which number's in the y2 position? -1. Which number's in my y1 position? Good job, it's a 3. What number's in my x2 position? Great, a 4. And finally, what number's in my x1 position? Awesome job, a 1. From here, we go ahead and we subtract. I have no double negatives, so I just do the basic math. What is -1 minus 3? Watch your negatives. Awesome. It is -4. And what is 4 minus 1? Great, it's a 3. When I look at this fraction, even though it's an improper fraction, I cannot divide both top and bottom by anything to reduce it. So I'm actually going to leave it this way. We're going to find later that it's actually easier to leave your slope as an improper fraction than to change it to a decimal. So always keep these as a fraction. Let's try one more. Let's look at letter B because there's a whole bunch of negatives in it. So we're going to look at 3B, again, where it's asking for the slope through these points. I'm still going to start with my equation. So I have y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. What part always stays? My fraction and my subtraction. So fraction and subtraction. Did you label your points already? Good job. x1, y1, x2, y2. So when I go ahead and substitute in my values, which number is in the y2 position? Good, -3. Which number is in the y1 position? Awesome, a -3. Looking at x2, yeah, great, it's a 5. And x1, you're on fire right now, good job, a -1. So if we look at this fraction, it becomes very clear that we have a lot of double negatives. I have minus a negative on top, so we change that to a plus. And I have minus a negative on the bottom, so we again change that to a plus. When I simplify this, what is -3 plus 3? Exactly, it gives us 0. What is 5 plus 1? Great, 6. Now, we don't leave this as this, because what is 0 divided by 6? Enter it in your calculator right now. Good job, it equals 0, which means this is our zero fun line. It's our line that is a horizontal line. You know, since it seems like you guys are doing such a great job, we're actually going to go back and do letter A, because I feel like there might be something special about letter A. Again, I'm going to start with writing my equation. So I have y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. Again, my fraction and my subtraction always stay, so I rewrite that. My fraction and my subtraction always stay. And now I'm going to substitute in the values that I label. I have x1, y1, x2, y2. So what number is in my y2 position? Good, it's a 2. And what number is in my y1 position? Great, it's a -3. x2? Oh, you're flying now, 4, good. And then, yes, you guessed it, it's a 4 in my x1 position. So if we look over here, we do see that we have a double negative on top. So what is 2 plus 3? Good job, it's a 5. And what is 4 minus 4? 0, good. Now, again, we have a 0 in this one, so I want you to take a moment right now to enter this in your calculator. In the calculator, enter 5 divided by 0. Are you getting a funny error that says divide by 0 error? Yeah, because we can't do that. You're not allowed to have a 0 on the bottom. So whenever we come across one that has a 0 on the bottom, we need to write that down as undefined. That is our undefined slope. So thinking back to our pictures, that is our slope that is exactly up and down or vertical. So make sure that you write the words, whether it's a 0 slope or an undefined slope. So let's see how this plays into when we have a graph. So looking at number 4, let's quickly go through and figure out how to find my slope. Remember your formula, Oh, by now you have it memorized. Y2 minus Y1 over X2 minus X1. And what always stays? Fraction and subtraction. What I would like you to do now is hit pause and try to substitute in the numbers yourself. Welcome back. Did you substitute in the numbers the right way? Good. I'm now going to prove to you what we just talked about. I see I have a double negative on the bottom, so I'm going to turn that to a positive. What is 2 minus 2? Good, 0. And what is 2 plus 3? 5. Awesome. So this is our 0 slope. If I were to plot these 2 points, so negative 3, so I'm going to go left 3, and then positive 2, so up 2. Here's that dot. And if I plot 2, 2, so I'm going to go right 2, up 2, and there is our line. So now I just proved that when you have 0 on top, that is our 0 slope. So what does this look like? A horizontal line. And finally, let's go ahead and look at number 5 and what that looks like on a graph. So hit pause. I want you to write down your formula and then do the substitution. So hit pause now. Awesome. Did you substitute those in the right way? Good job. Do you see any double negatives? Yep. On the bottom, we have double negatives, so we change it to a positive. So from there, what's negative 2 minus 1? Good, negative 3. And what's negative 2 plus 2? 0. Okay, now remember, we just said that that's our undefined slope because we can't divide by 0. So undefined. If I go ahead and plot those points, negative 2, 1 is right there. And negative 2 is down here. So if you look at that line, that is an exact vertical line. Great job with this material. I feel as though you are ready to go ahead and start working on your classwork. If you have any questions, don't hesitate to ask your teacher. Thanks and have a great day. Bye-bye.